Good morning, everyone. I'm Miriam, based in Mumbai, and I'm a filmmaker. I'll begin 20 years ago. That's us outside the hospital, my newborn in my arms. He closed his eyes. I opened my email. There it was. Congratulations. My documentary proposal had been accepted by the National Geographic Channel. Waves of joy followed by panic. I felt I had delivered twins. The questions the panel asked me played back to me. Can a woman director shoot in the harshest of terrain? The Bedouin tribesmen leave their families behind and go deep into the desert to train their camels. The prizes in the sport of kings is gold swords, SUVs, but the UN had come down heavily on the use of children as lightweight jockeys. I had proposed to film an experiment where a robotic team was going to introduce a substitute, a robotic substitute, to replace the children. Honestly, I never thought that the project will be accepted, but the impossible had happened. And now I had two choices, to either accept the challenge or give up. Today, there's a term for it. It's called the same sort of fears that I was facing. It's called the motherhood penalty. A study in 2024 showed that 75% of mothers who return after maternity leave, they face pay cuts, bias. Many of them drop out of the workforce. My question to all of you is, can we create spaces that retain this valuable talent pool? I like to call them mom economies, and I'm here today to share my journey of how that happened with me. Initially, it felt like I was leading a double life. While the baby is sleeping, I'm trying to figure out shoot schedules. I'm making baby food, and at the same time, working out budgets and trying to find out a crew that I will shoot with. But 7 months down the line, I was ready to wear my hat, my boots, and my rucksack and head into the desert. My mother and mother-in-law took turns babysitting my baby, while I would go for a few weeks at a time over an entire year. So obviously, initially I felt guilty, but no sooner had we reached than our equipment was grounded in the customs. American Express travel cards not accepted. So my job was to find solutions, but not alone. Just like it takes a village to raise a child, documentary filmmaking is the most collaborative art form. Here you can see my sound recorder strapping a boom mic onto a camel to capture the sound. And that's my cameraman then shooting in extreme conditions in the desert. And, every single crew member shapes the film. It is the job of the director to hold that vision intact. The Bedouin tribesmen themselves, they broke their custom and they allowed me to join in the communal meal where we all ate. I was the only woman in the whole of Al-Shahaniya in Qatar. And I knew I had one unique access to tell a very macho story, but from the lens of vulnerability. Robot Jockey won the Asian Television Awards for the best social documentary, and it created ripple effects in all the neighboring countries to also reform. I felt the power of storytelling, and there was no looking back. By this time, my son was in kindergarten, and he was adapting to the ways of a working mother. He would come and set up his own office under my table, and he would be drawing on the walls little doodles. This is when I discovered my next story by reading the newspaper. There was an ad put out by the municipal corporation saying that they would hold auditions for rat killers. 2,000 people had applied for just 30 vacant posts. So I went down, and this is what I saw. Candidates who were graduates, even postgraduates, competing in tests of speed and strength to land the post. When I met their supervisor, Behram Harda, who counts rats for a living, he told me he wanted to be a Bollywood dancer. But instead, he had taken the government job instead. And then he smiled at me and said, "So what? I'm like James Bond. I also have a license to kill." And in that moment, I knew I had discovered a most compelling set of characters, real-life characters, and a story that unfolds every night as the city sleeps. It was perfect for me. I could do night shifts while my family slept. So I would leave at midnight with my crew to follow men with a torch and a stick. And they had to bring back 30 dead rats. Even one rat less meant a pay cut. At the break of dawn, Harda would count the rats, enter them into a notebook, and that's when I would wrap up my shoot, return home, have a shower, pack my son's dabba, send him off to school, and collapse exhausted till my alarm went off at 12 in the afternoon when it was time to pick him up. Rat Race had its premiere in the biggest documentary festival in the world, in Amsterdam. And in India, PVR Cinemas gave it a theatrical release. It was that very rare documentary that you see in theaters. At that moment, we made Behram Harda's dream come true, because he came to a packed theater in Mumbai, his real-life story on the screen, and a chance to dance on the stage. By this time, my son was in junior school. He was an avid footballer with lots of friends, but I was getting complaints that he was distracted in class, not really writing, and I knew I had to spend time with him to do his studies. This is also the time that I discovered my next project, which would be in Pakistan. I roped in Karachi-based filmmaker Maheen Zia, and together we co-produced and co-directed Liari Notes about the underground music in Pakistan. My own plans to go to Karachi was dropped because our storyline followed 4 young girls who grew up in Liari, an area which is notorious for gang violence. And they enroll in a music school run by a Pakistani rock star. So what happened was that Maheen, we did not want to draw any attention to the shooting, be as quiet as possible, because the storyline unfolded over 3 years. Maheen would shoot in Karachi and send me the rushes so me and my team could edit and keep pitching for funds. Every week we would Skype with each other and we would get a glimpse of each other's worlds. Maheen would keep adopting cats and dogs, and I would see that on screen. And she would see my son coming in and interrupting with his homework as he grew up. Finally, Liari Notes was ready, and it premiered in Amsterdam, the International Documentary Festival of Amsterdam, where it was nominated for an award. Maheen and me were present to celebrate the fact that music and creativity could overcome borders, and the press loved this very unusual India-Pakistan collaboration. By this time, the pandemic struck. It was a challenging time for everybody. I personally was very concerned about my son, who was preparing for his board exams in isolation. We had news that in our neighborhood, a teenager girl his age had ended her life. From our 20-story building, my son could see other buildings, patches of green, while he attended online classes. And every once in a way, a leopard would visit us. Yes, we live quite close to the national park in Mumbai. And maybe a decade before the pandemic, we even got news that a leopard had been trapped. And this is the image that I saw. A majestic creature in a cage with its eyes blazing. It seemed to ask me the question, who is encroaching on whose land? These questions were magnified during the pandemic when people were dying for want of an oxygen cylinder. This is also the time we got news that more than 2,000 trees were going to be axed around the national park to expand the metro. There were protests breaking out across Mumbai, and I started noticing that it was the indigenous community at the forefront of this protest. So I took a trip down and met the Boir family. What I saw took my breath away. Clay walls with beautiful Warli paintings where the leopard is a daily visitor, a friend, and even worshipped as Wagoba. So we decided to start shooting this story during the pandemic with all its restrictions. When we had to film a wedding scene, there was a lockdown in the city. So I ended up calling the youngest boy, Akash, and asking him to film for us. He not only captured that scene, he got amazing images of his mother in a sari, climbing a tree, walking through the stream to find crabs and mushrooms. And as I looked through the rushes, I realized that motherhood is the heart of conservation because of the deep bond that a mother has with the natural surroundings around her. There you can see Premila Boir worshipping the leopard Wagoba. The Leopards tribe premiered in Kerala, where it won the Special Jury Award. We had a shorter version on BBC, and Premila earned the title the Tigress of Mumbai. After the pandemic was a happy time. It was time that my best production, my son, got to graduate and make his own choices. And it was also the time that I could release a film that was my hardest film. I had worked 6 long years on this film called From the Shadows. It unfolds along India's northeastern borders. And it started for me when I saw a life-size shadow of a girl on the wall with a hashtag that said missing. And when I started seeing this image appear on many other walls, I started asking who is putting up this image and why? And I was led to guerrilla artist Leena Kejriwal. She was putting up this image to draw attention to India's missing girls who are sold and trafficked. When one such girl escaped and came and asked for help to file a case against her traffickers, we started filming this elusive battle for justice. 4 years into filming, the survivor came and told me, I want my story told, but I need my identity hidden. This was a moment where I felt my entire story is crumbling because her expressive face was the canvas of my film. But the laws in India are very clear and consent is key. So we spent the entire pandemic years editing out her face. So finally, she appears like the first image I saw of a faceless shadow. It asked the audience then to lean closer to listen to the world of survivors. We needed an ending for this story. And that's when my co-producer, Alia, found the success story in the neighboring state of Meghalaya. Ella Sangma, who you see in the image, gave her testimony. She found the courage to give her testimony against a trafficking kingpin who she got the conviction and he is behind bars. She did this with the help of activist Hasina Karbi, and they work together today at Impulse NGO Network, where they work with thousands of survivors to find livelihood options and to find acceptance in society. When I looked around at the team who I was working with, the sisterhood that was on screen was also reflected behind the scene. Every key post had been held by a woman, and many of them mothers who could not find a foothold in the very rigid corporate systems. From the Shadows won my editor, Irene, the Mumbai International Film Festival Award for Best Editing because of the sensitivity with which she handled the narrative. And it was a very big moment for us when From the Shadows won the 70th National Film Awards for Best Direction from the President of India. And as I walked on stage, I was filled with gratitude in that moment that documentary filmmaking had transformed me from that same mother, nervous to step into the untold world, here was this big moment. And I had taken so many people along with me. From the Shadows also got an impact grant that allowed us to take the film far beyond OTTs or broadcasts. We could take a projector and screen to the most remote villages along the India-Nepal border and India-Bangladesh border, where there are actually these missing cases, and screen the film to them. We could also screen to the border security forces. And our survivor, Ella Sangma, stood on the stage like I am today and spoke to the officers not as a victim, but as a leader of change. And she addressed her rescuer as Amma, or mother. So I would like to end on that note, that documentary filmmaking has shown me motherhood in so many forms, much more than the literal form, through every single character that I have met and encountered. It has given me the courage to create a workspace which is not competitive, it is collaborative. And it makes me question the popular films that we see and all the self-sacrificial mothers that we see on screen, who have held generations of women in a trap of what society expects for us. Instead, today we are here in Meerut. Let's look at history. Let's look at the first war of independence. Who can forget the iconic image of Rani Lakshmibai on a horseback, leading her soldiers with her son strapped to her back? Let's not forget that brave, courageous, and independent image of motherhood. What we need is not for motherhood to be placed on pedestals, but to create more mom economies where we value skills, where we value resilience, and we give space and time for people to flourish and thrive. Thank you so much.